reach a level in Hebrew, one of the words that you learn when you move away from Israel is shachachti. Kol. Eta kol. It's a great honor to be asked to speak today. I feel a little bit like the prophets, where the Masa Adonai was sort of put on their backs. Because what can I say about the future of HBT? You look at the program today, past, present, future. That future's me. Well, this is what I will say. Lo navi anochi, v'lo ben navi anochi. I am not a prophet or a son of a prophet. And I'm going to depend a lot on you today. I hope that you're willing to join me today, because I only have some ideas that I would like for you to interact with me as we go. Now, we talked a lot about context today, and so I need to give you a little bit of context about me. Some of our colleagues that have been here today have been in Israel for decades. Some have worked in Nigeria for decades. Some have worked in other places for years and years and years. I've worked all over the world, and so know basically nothing, because I've never been anywhere long enough to learn anything. So help me today, all right? The other thing I want to say is that I want to give you the context of what I'm going to say comes out of this family of organizations. I've been with the Wycliffe family of organizations for 31 years as of next month, and 25 with SIL, and now 5 with C Company, plus a little bit on either side. And so most of what I say today will come out of this context. But I realize that this is just one very small part of the context, and I thank God for the Forum of Bible Agencies International, because it shows us that we are all in partnership together. Wycliffe, the Wycliffe family, sometimes may seem like a big behemoth that's trying to take over the world, and that's not our intention whatsoever. We need partners. We all have to partner. And what I'm going to say today, I hope that the main message you get out of this today is that we, Wycliffe, we, Forum of Bible Agencies International, we, the Home for Bible Translators, needs to partner. And so just so that you know that a lot of what I say today will come out of this context, but I understand that there's a much greater family of organizations working together in Bible translation. Katie and Sammy have both talked about need. Excuse me. Yoel is getting over his throat. I'm getting my throat, so please bear with me. Talked about statistics, talked about the need, and so the first part of what I wanted to talk about today was about the need. And I wanted to talk about challenges to meeting that need, and then maybe what HBT can do to help meet that need. I'm going to go through the first part really fast because some of that's already been done. And the number of languages, this is as of November 2014, number of languages with likely need of Bible translation and no active program in place as of last November, 1,859. This, you'll have to look at the details of this later. They are important, but not for today. I'll do a little math for you. 6,370 languages of the world do not have access to the Hebrew Bible. 5,041 have no access to the New Testament. If we turn that into the number of people, we can see that 1 1/3 billion people do not have access to the Hebrew Bible in the language that they truly understand. And 703 million people in the world still do not have any of the New Testament. This is another thing, and I'm supposed to give a caveat when I talk about these statistics. If you look at these charts and try to add up the numbers, they won't add up because the charts are mixtures of different measures. So don't say, oh, they don't add up, so it's not true. Just look at what the categories are that we're talking about. This one is a very interesting chart because it shows that right now the projects in progress in the world are 2,195. And if we add that together with the likely need, we have, sorry, I thought I had the total there. About, what do we have? 4,000 languages, either in progress, or a likely need for needing to be started. 4,000 projects. What are some challenges? Well, not only do we not have enough translators for all these projects, but even a more critical challenge is that we don't have enough translation consultants to help the process along and to help to approve it for publication in the end. Then we have the new projects that are starting, and we already are short on consultants, so what are we going to do with these new ones? Here's an example. A project that I work in has recently done a survey of all of the consultants that they have available, and they've determined that by the end of 2014, in addition to the consultants' commitment that they have now, they will need 150 consultant days more to get the work done. Where are those going to come from? In another place, in another different part of the world, only 75% of the national branch consultants are available for various reasons, health, administrative responsibilities, that sort of thing. And most of those have full-time jobs already. And so they're limited by their regular work schedule. What are some strategies? Identify consultant candidates. I loved working with Katie Barnwell in Nigeria for over 4 years because this is always on our minds. Who in this team is ready for that next step? But training consultants is the work of years and requires strong translation experience and mentoring. One of the ways that Asia area, and Brian Miglias has been involved in this a lot, SIL Asia area has been to develop this translation consultant development workshop, a very rigorous 4-week program for most people with presentations and then mentor checking. But this, again, how many people can we get through these processes? And then another problem, and in the seed company, in SIL, in all of these organizations, we have to identify mentors for these translation consultant trainees, but most consultants are already overworked. And so what do? I'm painting a black picture here. I hope you'll be encouraged by the time we finish. Here's a strategy that Seed Company has been working on with mixed success. Guest Bible scholars. There are people that know Hebrew, that teach in universities and seminaries, that we have partnered with, trained some to help with translation projects, maybe as exegetical advisor, and some that rise and show promise could actually have become or are on the track to become consultants. Larry Jones, our Senior Vice President for Bible Translation, offered these 2 slides in a presentation recently. Just a profile of a guest Bible scholar is a professionally competent in biblical languages and exegesis. So this could be a seminary professor or even a pastor that has had the training that is competent in the languages and exegesis. A learner spirit. This is difficult sometimes for seminary professors and theology professors and even pastors to be in a learning position, to come and be laughed at when you make a mistake and to laugh with them. A humble and amiable demeanor that is, you're one of the team. When I go to work with a team in Nigeria or in Nepal or wherever I work, they need to know that I'm not the boss. They need to know that I'm not the expert. I have some specialty, so do they. And we work together as a team. Ronnie agrees. Otherwise, it's my translation and not theirs. And that's not going to sell very well, let me just tell you that. And they need to be sensitive to this power disparity, and this is what I was just talking about. When they come, they're an expat, they've got the degrees, they might have white hair, and they come and they're respected, and everything you say is right out of God's mouth. And that's very, very difficult to deal with. But it takes effort, and it's worth it to build the partnership with the team so that it really is a team. And so you can see that perhaps these kinds of people are few and far between as well. This idea of a guest Bible scholar also offers a new role for translation consultants, that now we are mentoring guest Bible scholars, not just people who have translation experience and that are becoming translation consultants, but mentoring these guest Bible scholars in similar kinds of work, and then overseeing their work with the translation team. The analogy that Larry Jones offers is like a medical doctor with a physician's assistant. There's a lot that a physician assistant can do to help with medical needs that a doctor doesn't need to be involved in, but the doctor oversees that work. But again, we have the same problem. Who's going to be the mentor? Who's going to take up this challenge? So there are new projects starting all over the world. New translators and translation advisors need training in biblical languages and exegesis. Local opportunities and funding for this specialized training are very limited. Some strategies offer specialized linguistics and training for translators. That's not really a big surprise, is it? Place experienced advisors and consultants with a new team for on-the-job training. Identify those who show aptitude. Again, so bringing up people. But again, local opportunities and funding for this specialized training are limited. Again, NBTT, Nigeria Bible Translation Trust, where several of our colleagues here are related to this, they offer yearly introductory courses in applied linguistics and translation principles. They offer Greek and Hebrew, computer skills, including paratext that Sammy and Katie were talking about, and other regular training. They are intentional about raising the level of competence of our teams. And they also identify those who show aptitude. I think it was last March, Katie, there were 45 Nigerian consultant prospects that came to a workshop. That is really exciting. That's as many consultants as the C Company has total. Something like that. How can they do this? They have people like Katie and Uche and Ishaku and others who are intentionally doing this. So here's the summary of the need. Probably took more time than I should have on that part. Not enough consultants, and training new consultants takes time and is a big investment from the mentors. Many new projects are starting. New translators and translators advisors need training and experience. Okay, now I wish I had the 5 minutes that I just took to come back here, but I stole this off the website. And I really like the vision and the goal and the strategy of HBT to train mother tongue translators in the language and land of the Bible, to assist all translation projects of the Hebrew Bible, to have at least one mother tongue translator who has been trained in the land of the Bible. But I want you to look at this next thing, this next sentence here. 75 languages out of 500. That is amazing. But there are 425 that haven't been touched. How can we do that? The strategy is to provide the study program that all of you know about, that we love so much. So the past and continuing successes are the 6-month course, the 12-day course, these special courses that have been offered that we've already heard about today, including, nobody's mentioned the Spanish and Chinese courses that have happened. The summer biblical Hebrew poetry course that happens from time to time. is also a very interesting thing. And some people I've heard talking today is the intermediate level at the 6-month course is good, but it's not enough. Here's an idea. Here's something that's happened and could be happen again. This is what I wanted to pick out of this. They realize, however, Mary O'Brien, others involved with HBT realize that it's not enough. As much as God has done through HBT, it's not enough. We are requesting prayer about the needed expansion to a larger number of students. How is this going to happen? Here's some translators, or some challenges. Some translators and consultants are not able to spend 6 months away from their home and their family and their work. And funding for these things are difficult. I just changed these statistics in this one because of what Halvor said this morning. 79 languages, sorry, I didn't change the other one. 421 current projects are without help. I have to say, one South Asian country just a couple of years ago had 2 complete Bibles, besides the national language, and only 1 Old Testament project going. Now, there are 4 active Old Testament projects that I'm responsible for right now, and it's way more than I can do, and others are coming along. Within 10 years, we might have 10 to 15 Old Testament projects going in this small country. Who's going to help with that? Global Alliance statistics, 2,195 projects in progress, 500 are Old Testament. What can HBT do to assist the other 1,700 projects that are not yet involved in Old Testament translation? Or is that outside God's mandate for HBT? 1,859 languages are likely in need. What can HBT do to assist these languages? Here's some ideas that HBT staff has already considered. A 1-month Biblical Hebrew and Historical Geography course. For those who can't come for 6 months, how about a 1-month course? We could do something similar to the 12-day consultant course along with Hebrew, focus on translation issues of the Hebrew Bible. The Hebrew component could be adjusted, upper, lower, whatever the group requires. A 3-month Biblical Hebrew and Biblical Geography course, Historical Geography course. The Hebrew component focuses on Hebrew narrative now, for the most part. What about a next level that could focus on Hebrew poetry? I think you'd like that, wouldn't you? Yeah. We talked about an MA program in 2006. Halvor, Miria and Brian and I sat down and just threw out some wild ideas, and by 2009 it had actually come into sort of a real form that we patterned after what was then the Bible in its World program within the RIS, Rothberg School program. And it was called Exegesis and Translation of the Hebrew Bible. We didn't get very far with that. I don't think we had the energy to do anything about it at the time. Maybe that's an idea that needs to be revisited. I like to hear that. There are people that need this and want this. Here's some possibilities. Let's look at some components of things that HBT could do, or HBT and partners should do. And I wanted to emphasize this partnership is because HBT right now is a small entity and does a tremendous amount of stuff and already is over committed, I think, in some ways. Partnering with who to do what? Let's talk about these ideas. So on the historical geography and cultural background side, this is, of course, one of the 2 primary strands. It's possible to learn Hebrew elsewhere, and please be patient with me on that statement. But there's nowhere else you can smell and touch the land, except here. Nowhere else. A few years ago, I was with Brian in a tour in Midbarzin, and we went out at 6 in the morning, and there was no sound except a little bit of breeze. And all I could think, thank God I could smell the land here. And I invite people to come by saying, come smell the land. Because you can see it through videos, you can hear it through recordings, but you can't smell it unless you're here. So a short tour similar to the 12-day course, maybe an intensive 3 to 4 week course like Jerusalem University College and University of the Holy Land has done, with intensive study ahead of time, map work, that sort of thing, for credit. They can be done. HBT is unique in that its courses are dedicated specifically for Bible translators. And of course, we have the normal 6-month, 4-month course that we have now. This could be combined with either a beginning Hebrew component or Greek, even, for those who are not ready for Old Testament, or refresher Hebrew or Greek. And this could be perhaps changed into a 3-month course. Let's look at some possibilities on biblical language, or let's say languages. I'm just throwing out possibilities here. I'm not advocating necessarily for anything. There's also a unique opportunity to learn New Testament Greek here in the land. Randall's still here? You still there, brother? He and his team offer a very unique opportunity to learn New Testament Greek in this land. Partnering together, maybe, combining a historical geography course with Biblical Language Center. Maybe that's a possibility. The normal 6-month intermediate course is also a component. Short-term refresher Hebrew. I've talked to a number of people who said, oh, I took Hebrew 30 years ago. There's no way I could use Hebrew now. What do we do for people like that? Either through an intensive modern Hebrew program like the Winter Ulpan, or an intensive biblical Hebrew course. Again, Biblical Language Center's intermediate courses may be helpful here, similar to a Winter Ulpan experience. Short-term beginning Hebrew. What about that? Again, similar to the intensive modern Hebrew course like the Winter Ulpan, or an intensive biblical Hebrew course. Short-term beginning of refresher New Testament Greek. I took Greek 30 years ago. I use it very little. I'm sorry, Dr. Tov. But I can only access the Septuagint because of other helps. I don't use it very much. But it's possible that we could help some of these groups that are not yet working on Old Testament. Who could benefit from combining these various components, whether it's beginning Hebrew or advanced Hebrew or a short historical geography course or a full 6-month course? Consultants would learn, who would learn and be able to teach the history, etc. That we know this, if they could see it themselves. Consultants who have been, this is an emphasis in the seed company that I've been asked to help deal with. We have a lot of consultants that have spent their careers working only in the New Testament. They are not confident, and they know they're not competent to check Old Testament. So what do we do for them? Well, we need to try to develop something for them, some way of learning enough Hebrew, enough about the genre of the Old Testament. This is something that perhaps HBT could be involved in with partners. Mother tongue translators and consultants in training who have attained this advanced beginning level and could spend 6 months in Israel. Of course, that's the main course that we've had already. And others with different combination of components who may not be able to stay 6 months. And translators and consultants involved in other courses, including biblical languages. And mother tongue translators. We have mother tongue translators come, but usually they're the ones that have been identified with a higher level of education, a higher level of Hebrew, and they come here. And I've asked for permission to quote from my friend Hani Kun's email to me. She wrote, the average, she's talking about the early days of HBT and some of the MTTs that came here that didn't have adequate Hebrew and had a real struggle on the Hebrew side. But they profited immensely from the other parts of the program, having seen and experienced the climate, etc., etc. You can take the time to read this later. The point is, and it's exactly what Sammy was just telling, how about MTTs being able to come for a short period of time, just to do the historical geography course? Not just for consultants, maybe, but just for, again, I'm not advocating anything, I'm not trying to push anything, these are just ideas. Who will, Who will help to teach and lead these courses? The rest of this slide is blank. And I want you to start engaging with me now. Do you have ideas to answer this question? I only have a couple of minutes, so we need to, don't be shy. Jump in. Who will help to teach or lead these courses?
HBT alumni.
Yes. Survivors. Who better to help the new ones survive? The ones that have done it.
And those inspired by the Biblical Learning Center, Dr. Randall Booth, Gary Alley, enthusing people about speaking the language.
That's right. That's right. And as Aaron was talking about this morning, this connection between modern Hebrew and the learning Hebrew as a living language. Of course, modern Hebrew is a living language. Randall and his team have made biblical Hebrew, in a sense, into a living language for us. What an opportunity to use some of your alumni as well. What about off-site or online programs? I am not a techie, so I'm not going to offer any answers here. But there's many people that will never be able to come to Israel, whether it's visa issues or funding or timing or family needs. How might HBT help with these? Partnering with other form of Bible agencies, organizations to develop training materials and methods. I'm just going to go through these. I was going to keep giving examples, but I'm running out of time. Partnering with consultants from other FOBI organizations to plan groups and venues. Produce videos and other materials of selected components of the current program. Could we do that? We're videoing this now. Is that a verb? Videoing? Could we do that as part of, Ray Pritz did that with the United Bible Society and the UBS Bible Lands' classrooms. They did some things like that. Could HBT be involved in that? And all that's, can you imagine the multitude of books, it sounds like the Gospel of John, of all the stuff that's in Halvor's head about this land. What an opportunity to preserve that. I mean, he turns 80, right? Yeah. Okay, soon. And 120 is only 40 years away. So that's going to come to an end one of these days. And then it'll go with you. And we don't want that. We want it to stay. Making use of materials already available. Can we combine some of what HBT does now, do it off-site using some of these tools that are already being used in various places, including HBT? Brian tells me that Bill Schlegel's new Satellite Bible Atlas is being used. It's an excellent tool, developed over how many, 20-some years. And make use of materials already developed for biblical languages, like Biblical Language Center and Bible Mesh is looking for ways to partner with HBT, with Seed Company. In fact, at the end of April, Nick Ellis from Bible Mesh is going to be meeting with senior leadership of Bible translation in Seed Company to see how can we partner together. Others, again, I'm not a techie, and so this last little question, others, what about other possibilities for off-site or online programs? Just a minute for discussion, and then I have to close. I'm sorry that I didn't let you talk more than I did. I really wanted you to talk. Please, if anyone has anything to share, ideas, they will be noted. I'm very confident. How can HBT and partners meet this incredible need? It's far beyond any of us, and we are dependent, of course, on the Lord. Maria says this all the time. HBT wouldn't be where it is without the miracles, many miracles that the Lord has done. He needs to do lots more for us to meet the need in this world. People need God's Word in their language. Anything that you'd like to share, please. Yes, please.
Prayer in the matter of funding, because we're strictly a grassroots organization, nonprofit, volunteers, and there is another approach. There are organizations that instead of ministering to the down and outers, ministry to the up and outers and give them a reason for living and being able to contribute money to worthwhile projects like this. And pray, because there's some of that in the offing of people who have that kind of connections, who could bring another level of funding into this work. It's very exciting option, but needs real Holy Spirit direction. I had a friend who had 30 people on his staff, all relying on one major supporter, and when he went under, the fellow drove out of town with his pickup truck. His wife and his son had to sell his house. So, wisdom, Holy Spirit direction.
Yes, and with funding, if you get major funding, comes changes in priorities, and that's difficult to maintain your mandate. I think, you know, when we see Ray Pritz's videos, when I take those to workshops in Nigeria, every night, every workshop, they take my set away from me and they go watch them. 7 p.m., we're going to watch the next video, because it puts them that much closer to the land. And the more professionally done and the more they're designed, the better. I'm already past my time, so yes, please. Good. Let's say something.
I think in your suggestions for the future, they basically fall into two classes. One is to do courses with different lengths of time, between 12 days and 6 months. The other is to do courses for new audiences, so to speak. Now, I think the first one is not maybe the best way to go, because you may end up with so many different things, 6 months, 3 months, 2 months, 1 and so forth, that it's all sorts of things running together. But the second one, I think, is maybe more important. The one that struck me most is the one for consultants who've been working in New Testament to expand their ability to work on Old Testament. I think this could be a very important field, because in a sense what you're doing is you're going to extend the shelf life of consultants that you already have. And also, there are people who start on a different level. I mean, in the work they've been doing, they're on a high level. So the kind of course you can give to them would be something rather different. I mean, you have to adapt to people who are, in a sense, ignorant about the field, but on a high level in the related field, which means you can maybe put more into a particular program. I would say maybe this is of all the things you suggested, it struck me as maybe the most useful one.
Good, thank you. Well, that's one of the mandates that my boss has given me, so that's good encouragement. Yeah, good. Ishaku.
Oh yes, thank you. I've been thinking about the possibility, but I don't know whether Kuji, Hebrew University, will accept the credit that is acquired from that possibility. That if, for example, in Africa, we have many alumni from HBT who are qualified. I guess they have the expertise to teach some of the courses that do not require seeing the land, practical seeing of the land. So that if HBT will have a center in Africa, perhaps, and then all those discourse analyses and all other courses that do not require seeing the land could be taught over there, and the credit could be converted or could be transferred to here, and they could have a short period here for historical and cultural and other aspects that would require touring around. Isn't that easy to help to develop more camps?
Okay, so regional centers, making use of the Winter Ulpan, Biblical Language Center, an intensive course, this kind of thing. Again, who's gonna do this, and where is the funding going to come from? Of course, we know where it ultimately would come from, but okay. Yes, please.
Thank God for the Hebrew assemblies for people come. It's free. There's many Hebrew assemblies here now.
Yes.
Let them come to the meetings.
Good, okay.
I want to supplement this dream that we had a couple of years ago about the MA, which is actually the dream is an MA, because if you have couple of serious people who have an MA in biblical Hebrew with Bible translation and concentration that we read about. We were taught by the Rockland International School that you can create such an MA if you have a person in the regular Hebrew University who would take, a professor who would take that. And we now have that professor who told 2 weeks ago, if you want to make that program, we can be done.
So that is really exciting. That is really exciting. So we need to pray. That's maybe the first and last and middle step, that God will continue to bless with a nonprofit, low-funded, grassroots organization. Look what God has done through HBT. What more could He do with more resources, both human and financial? Let me finish with a little illustration that I give to our translators. In Kathmandu, Nepal, there is a bead market. Very beautiful, colorful beads everywhere. It's just amazing. Let me take that analogy and apply it to Bible translation. When people go to the bead market, let's say, and the bead market being the Bible, in an international language, this is at best what they see. Maybe they have access to a national language or a regional language. They can see this. That's better. They can get some of it. They get the idea that it's a bead market, but they have no idea of the color when it's in their heart language. That's not an adjusted picture. That's the real thing, right, from the bead market. And let me leave you with a challenge. We've heard this many, many times from many people all over the world. If your God is so great, why doesn't He speak my language? This is the challenge that's before us in Bible translation, and we covet your involvement and your prayers. So thank you.
The academic portion has concluded. Now I'm going to preach for 5 minutes. What's so special about this Hebrew Bible that we want to spread it to the whole world? Let's race. Adam, the image of God. Try to find that in other ancient Near Eastern literatures, that everybody has the image of God. We're equal in God's eyes. Martin Buber, 1930, International Conference on Values being inculcated in youth. And he said, whatever else we argue about, the situation is hopeless unless we base it on the image of God in everyone. Anybody knows honesty and generosity are going to build a society. But if you can get rich by avoiding honesty and generosity, why not? Unless there's some basis. Abraham, in you all families of the earth will be blessed. That's a very humble calling. One of my Israeli friends gets too sassy. I say, yeah, you're the chosen people. You're blessed. That's true, but it's for my sake. That's what it says in the call to Abraham already. Moses, Torah, God's loving instructions. 40% of the instructions are maybe instructions what to do when you fail to follow the instructions. Confession, repentance, forgiveness, hesed, and loving God. Try to find that in the other ancient Near Eastern literatures. Solomon. The temple is just like a Canaanite temple. Porch, sanctuary, Holy of Holies. What's in the Holy of Holies? A box that says there's one God in heaven, and because of it we should live with respect for one another. Try to find that in one of the other Canaanite time period temples. Prophets, and that's the one that clenches it all for me. Held to a standard that's above the kings. Thrilled when Isaiah said, you will not enter this city, and it didn't happen even against all odds, humanly speaking. And then a little over 100 years ago, Jeremiah saying, surrender, you'll be destroyed. And they didn't lose their faith when it was destroyed because the prophets had prepared them for what are the consequences of disregarding those loving instructions. So we're talking about a change of era. For hundreds of years, scribes were faithfully copying the Bible in Hebrew for their people. But something happened. It was too good for all this to be limited to the Jewish people themselves, and an explosion of Holy Spirit energy happened, and we moved from scribes to translators. And we're in that period now of knowing the love of the God of Israel is too big to be kept to one people group. I would be a barbarian Viking if it weren't for those Jewish people who wanted to share the love of God of Israel. So, on that thought, blessings, Tampen Islam, end of our, this day, celebrating of the joy of what the Lord has done over the last 20 years, and see many of you tomorrow and the next day. Lord bless.